All right. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you guys for tuning in to the Amarillo Branch NAACP community meeting. This Zoom format, I believe, is working very well for us. The recording will be available on our Facebook page later on today. And today we are joined by some extremely strong women who not only do a lot for our community, but I am happy to call them my friends as well. And so, first, we have Robin Malone. In addition to being my friend, she's also my sister. So, it's a pleasure to have her on today. She is an attorney and she's a real estate agent in addition to a lot of other things. And so I'll give you an opportunity in a minute to introduce yourself. And then we have Renea Dauntes, and she is an archivist. So that's cool as it sounds. Yes. And then we have Dr. Shanna James, who is one of the youngest doctors that I know. She was a pharmacist. She's at every single meeting that I'm at, and she brings all the energy with or without coffee. So amazing. I want to welcome you ladies today. And first of all, I just want to give you guys, I want to leave space for you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us what you do and all those good things. So, Robin, we'll start with you.
What was the last part of that? I'm sorry.
Just all the good things. Just introduce yourself and just all the good things about you.
Okay. So my name is Robin Malone. I am an Amarillo native. I am a real estate agent and attorney. I will have been licensed to practice law for 28 years this summer. It's amazing how fast time goes by. In addition, I'm a local real estate agent with Keller Williams. In terms of good things about me, I think my kids are the best thing about me, but I could talk about them for this entire meeting, so I won't do that. um, accomplishments that I've had that I'm really proud of would be I was president of our school board during a very tumultuous time. It was during the COVID pandemic shutdown. So I learned a lot during that time about myself and just being able to stretch myself. And I really learned the meaning of what it is to have a servant's heart because I adopted all of those kids and I wanted to make sure that they had everything they needed during that very stressful time. Um, One thing about that, I was the first Black woman to serve in that position. So with that came a lot of responsibility and just really acceptance that I was standing on the shoulders of those who went before me, and I didn't want to let those people down. So that's one of the coolest things that I think that I have given to the Amarillo community.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thank you. Next, we'll move over to Renea.
Hey, my name's Renea Dauntes. I am an archivist and research assistant at Panhandle Plains Historical Museum. And last year, I finished my master's degree, and that was the culmination of a project that is called How Women Save the West. So I actually focused on how women played an integral role of preserving information and artifacts and helped get to the past to the present. And so I'm a big advocate for preservation and for knowing our history, knowing where we come from. And fortunately, there's lots of women that come from a long line that of keepers and organizers, and I'm one of them. And I know that some of the people in this audience are probably the same way. So I'm a big advocate for that. So that's my contribution to the community is encouraging preservation and keeping our stories alive.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. And then Dr. Shanna, last but certainly not least.
Hello, I am Dr. Shanna James. I currently work at Amarillo Public Health. Prior to COVID, I was a professor at Texas Tech Health Science Center. I did get my doctorate when I was 23, and at 24, I was one of the youngest faculty at the Texas Tech Health Science Center. I'm now 36, so it's been a few years. But I like to see groundbreaking change. It is so important to know our history and how far we've been able to come as women in a very short time. And I like to be able to show that women can serve in different leadership positions, and just the way we process things are different, and sometimes that's exactly what we need for the change. I am vice chair of the Continuum of Care, that is our homeless collaborative group, as well as chair for reentry, focusing on mental health and the criminal justice.
All right. I told you guys we had some heavy hitters today, so we're going to just jump right in. Let's go ahead and start. Robin, we'll start with you, and I'll randomly pick you guys to start the different questions. But being a woman today, we all know it is one of probably the hardest things that we have to do. In your opinion, what do you think is one of the hardest things that we face as women?
I think realizing our own self-worth and realizing the value that we bring to the table. I think a lot of times we get nervous when we step into rooms and there's not a lot of people in that room that look like us. So the challenge is, the question is, do I want to assimilate to be more like the rest of the group, or do I want to stand out and show up as my authentic self, whatever that is? So for me, that's always the biggest challenge, making sure that I am showing up as Robin, who Robin is, not who people want Robin to be. And knowing that when Robin shows up to a room, she has value to add just as she is. So whether that's, education, whether that's experiences, whether that's my empathetic heart, my servant heart, showing up as we are, as opposed to trying to be the chameleon, depending on the situation that we're in.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Dr. Shanna, we'll let you answer that question next.
Yeah, I think sometimes as women, and this has personally happened to me, when I've brought up potential problems and solutions, then I'm someone who is just, you know, being a troublemaker. Whereas and I've heard this from my male mentors, that if I would have been a male in the same role, they would saw that as leadership skills. So trying to learn how to navigate through that to be able to make systems and changes, we have to identify those problems. And so I sometimes can't, I try to be my true self, but at the same time, I know sometimes I am going to have to present differently than my male counterparts to be able to get that change to happen. And it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that, we put these titles on people. I was listening to a story the other day, and it was a Black woman kind of sharing experience. Just like, if I would have stepped up and said something, then I would have been considered an angry Black woman. Gratefully, somebody else stood up and said the injustice, but it's unfortunate that sometimes we do have to take that into consideration, that we just can't just walk the way that we need to walk or talk the way that we need to talk, because it may not be taken the way it needs to be taken.
Definitely, definitely. And Renee, what about you?
I think I would echo similar things to both Robin and Shanna. Underestimation. I think that's the one thing that women are presented with most frequently, and not just from the outside, but from the inside. Sometimes we underestimate ourselves. And so we have the ability, we have the intelligence, we have so much, but because we're female, so often it's, oh, well, that's just not a woman's place, or that's not something a woman's done, or that's not something that is a woman's business, or it's a bunch of that's not. And being able to face the places where we're underestimated, and we come out on top, and we come out where where we show that we do have power, where we show that we do have solutions, where we do show that our thinking is innovative, and that's sort of the adage that you under promise and over deliver. Women are always over delivering, and we always have this. It's a two-edged sword, because then there's this shock that, oh my gosh, you're a woman and you did that. Don't underestimate us. We are very powerful creatures, and I think that's what we face most often, but not just from the outside, but lots of times we underestimate ourselves as well and our capabilities.
Definitely. I think us being able to band together, I don't think a lot of times we realize how powerful we could be if we all band together as women. I mean, I think back to the different wars, and you had the women who were actually fighting in the wars, you had the women who were taking care of households, they were doing some of everything. And now when we come forward, it seems that sometimes pettiness, it seems to divide us, when at the end of it, the foundation of it is that we're all women and that we should all be able to stick together. I want to talk a little bit about, because this is a voting year and voting is extremely important. And traditionally, I think that fewer women vote because of whatever reason. But I think this year, in this coming election, I think it's extremely important that we vote. And I just wanted to make note that in 1920, the 19th Amendment is ratified and grants women the right to vote. So when you think about that, I mean, when my son talks about, like, when I graduated, he refers to it as the 1900s, but we know that that's not that long ago. That would be in, like, for us, that'd be my grandmother's age. She was alive when women were granted the right to vote. So we think about it as being a long time ago, but in essence, it really was not very long ago. So could you ladies talk about the importance of voting? And Dr. Shanna, we're going to start with you on this one. The importance of voting right now.
Yes. So yeah, it's only been 100 years, but at that same point, just like our people of color, not all those rights came in 1920 either. Being able to own property, being able to have your own checking account, that was not till the 1960s. And so as a single female that owns my own home, owns my own vehicle, it is very scary right now what is happening in our nation. So this is Shanna. This is not representing any organization in my thoughts. I am very fearful on some of the trajectory of what's going on right now and the rights being taken away from women because we have not had them that long. And so, me being able to do what I do today, there is a chance that we're really kind of going backwards in time. Just being able to be in control of our own bodies, being able to make our own decisions that impact us. Including Texas, if you are pregnant, you cannot get a divorce, even in the case of domestic violence. Let that sink in. So you can have somebody that's not just putting your life on the line, but your child, and you cannot get a divorce in that situation. So it is time as women that we need to really look at the rights of women and vote in a way to make sure that we have rights.
Definitely, definitely. Robin, your take on voting in the current state right now and how important it is.
I think that it is crucial. I believe that there is no right or wrong when it comes to voting. You hear a lot of people saying, well, my vote's not going to matter. It matters. And there are people who came before us who fought and died for us to be able to vote, who fought and died for us to be able to have that right. And we need to exercise that right. I want to piggyback on what Shanna said. We look at some of the issues that are really at stake right now. We saw what happened with Roe v. Wade. We know that that was a direct product of the justices who were placed on the Supreme Court by an elected president. So if we look at it like that, it goes back to voting. Who's getting out there voting? Who are they voting for? So our reproductive rights are in jeopardy. We look at the mortality rates of women in childbirth. All of these things are at stake. We really need to get out there and vote. When we look at the disparity in income of women to men, we make 82% of what our male counterparts make. And when we look at Black women, we make 72%, I believe. So we would have to work until we're probably in our 90s to make what a white male makes. With similar education, similar experience. And so I think all of these things are a reason for us to get out and vote. And when we look at the fact that we don't have as many women running right now, a lot of that stems from, well, am I going to get the support? Am I going to get, the votes that I need to get in and make that change? So I think it's very important that, we are knowledgeable about what the issues are. And I think sometimes we look at it and we say, okay, a woman is running, I need to vote for her. But we need to make sure that her platform aligns with protecting women. Just because you are a female candidate doesn't mean that your platform aligns with what is best for women in this country. So I think we should vote, but I think we need to be knowledgeable about the issues, and we need to stand on the issues that are going to protect women and advance women's rights.
Definitely, definitely. And Renee, your take on this?
I say we should vote before we can't. As many times as things have been taken away recently, and historically, if we don't do something, then there's the argument that could be made, well, women aren't voting anyway, why do they need the right to vote? Why, whenever they make gerrymandered maps and they're talking about individuals in places in larger cities where they're like, oh, well, those people don't vote anyway. So what does it matter that the maps aren't really that fair? Well, it matters that it's not fair because it's not fair. If there's this idea that we won't take advantage of it now, then there's a potential that we can't take advantage of it later. So being able to take advantage of the people that did fight for us, the people that did, in some cases, lose their lives or their reputations or their livelihoods in an effort to make sure that we are represented. It's a matter of everything that we take advantage of the opportunity that we're given. Otherwise, we may not be able to in the future. There may be arguments made that if you didn't do it then, why will you do it now? And so you've really got to do it while you can, and before we can't do it at all.
Definitely. That sense of urgency that we need to, every right that we have, we need to make sure that we're exercising that right, because as easily as it was given, it could be taken away. And I think that echoes in everything that you ladies just shared with us. I think this election year that is coming up is going to be extremely important on a local level, national level, all of the levels. But we need to make sure that we, A, get out and vote, and B, that we start to put forward some female candidates who believe the way that we believe and who we can get some support behind, so we can make sure that the change actually happens. As women, we know that we are responsible for making things happen, and we need to start encouraging other women that despite the hardness of running in a campaign, that it is something that we need to focus on. So thank you, ladies, for those comments. Definitely.
Can I have one other comment on that?
Yes, definitely.
When you talk about candidates, it's so important to have that support. So one of the most controversial decisions I had to make when I was on the school board, we had to vote on it. It was changing the name of Lee Elementary to Park Hills Elementary. On the day we had that vote, to look out there and see so many women in that audience supporting me, it made all the difference in the world. So I think, if we get those candidates up there, we have got to wrap around them, whether we know them or not. We need to wrap around them and give them that support and give them those virtual hugs.
Definitely, definitely. I think supporting each other, I think, should be the foundation of us as women. we already take care of our families and we support everything, but sometimes we're exhausted and we don't have the time to support others. But I think we need to move that up on the totem pole and make sure that those who are in positions to create change, that we wrap our arms around them and we make sure that they are supported. Because just as Robin was talking about, when she had to make those hard decisions, it's so hard to look out in the audience and see nobody who's out there supporting you that looks like you or understands. And Dr. Shanna, you've been in that situation. Renee, I know you've been in that situation. And so just having that support system that we create, just because we're women, like I can go somewhere and see a woman and I'm like, hey girl, how you doing? You know, because she's just a woman like I am. And we can connect on that level. And I think we're getting away from that. Society says that we have to be divided because you're Black, you're white, you're female, you're male, you're this, you're that, but at the base of all of it, we are all humans. And especially as women, we need to put those differences aside and make sure that we're banding together to support each other. And so now we're going to shift just a little bit. I only have an hour with you guys, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm trying to get as much as I can now. Let's talk a little bit about education. You three ladies are extremely educated. Let's talk about educational attainment for women and why we see it almost starting to decline a little bit. We have more women who are choosing to enter the workforce instead of going and getting a college education. How important is that? How important is education, not only for us, but for the generation of women who are coming behind us? And Renee, you just earned your master's degree, so we're going to start with you on this one. And congratulations for that.
Thank you. Education is something that wasn't very prominently spoken about in my family. I'm a first generation college student. I was the first one to get my bachelor's in my family. I was the first one to get my master's in my family. And my sister's working on her master's now. But when I went back to school to finish my bachelor's, I was asked, why are you going back to school? You've got a kid. My little boy was 6 at the time. And I didn't have any answer other than I know I need it. And for me, that was something that was extremely important. And knowing that there are now, an entire generation that are disenchanted with education, higher education, because of student loans, and it will take forever to pay them back. I am one of those people. I keep threatening just to move to Europe and never step foot in the US, so I don't have to pay my student loans back. It would be cheaper. I have a great sympathy for that, but not only should we think about education and higher education in the way that I have my degrees, and there are multiple degrees, but there is education on so many different levels, whether it be at a community college, whether it be at a trade school. Education comes in several shapes and forms, and learning is what's important, not necessarily the letters that come after your name, but finding something that you want to learn about and finding something that you can be passionate about. Someone is there to teach you. And then as we get older, being able to teach that to future generations. So it's being a link in a chain, really, what education should be, in my opinion. But it's a matter of finding the right fit for you. Otherwise, education is just sitting in a classroom. But if you find what you love, find what you're good at, then go and learn everything you can, and then teach anyone who will listen. And I think that's the way that education can regain its foothold in our society is by letting people learn what they want, how they want, and then having people teach those anyone who will listen.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. And Robin, what is your take on the importance of education?
I think we have we redefined a little bit of what education is. So you have your formal education and then you have your lifelong learning. I think both are important. I don't think the learning stops once you get your degree or once you're out working. I think it has to be a lifelong thing. Um, in terms of formal education, so female students, we earned the majority of degrees in 2021 to 22. So I think we have latched on to the importance of education. So the statistics say 63% of the associates, 59% of the bachelor's degrees, 63% of the master's, and 57% of the doctorate degrees were given to females in 21, 22. So we know that 95% of females between 25 and 29 got at least their high school diploma. So I think we've latched on to that and we realize the value of that. I realize the value of it in that I can go into any room and I will put my resume up against anybody's. That education cannot be taken from me. And so I hold on to that. And I think it gets my foot in doors that I normally wouldn't get into. So I completely advocate for formal education. You know, we have redefined what education looks like because we know not all students are going to go to a 4-year college and get a degree. They would be more successful with the trade path. And so I think we have to acknowledge that. One of the things that they were working on right before I left the school board was just like we have celebrations for kids who signed to play athletics at the next level. We wanted to do something that honored those students who wanted to do a trade. They wanted to, you know, be a plumber or electrician, things of that nature. I think we need to celebrate that because the formal education isn't for everyone. And then lifelong education. It's learning. So during COVID, I was bored, so I got my real estate license. And so I think that continuous, ongoing education is important. We live in a world where the issues are changing, things are changing minute by minute, and I think we need to be up to date on those things. And that just requires having the discipline to do that, the learning on your own as well.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. So you got bored and decided to get your real estate license. I get bored and I go to sleep. So
I did. I was like, I can get this online. This is cool.
Goodness gracious. All right. And then Dr. Shanna, what you weigh in on education?
So I'm gonna share a little bit deeper about myself. So my high school sweetheart was not that sweet. At 19, I was engaged and I was on a path to getting an education, but I realized being in a relationship with him that I potentially was never going to have anything. I don't care how much we made. And so I had friends that were already in a situation where they could not separate from their significant other because they could not pay their bills. And so that was a position I never wanted to be in. I wanted to never be stuck in a position of domestic violence or emotional or physical or mental abuse because I financially wouldn't be able to make it on my own. And so that was something for me that empowered me to want to have an education, to be able to support myself so I would never have to settle. And I still have it. I've been in several long-term relationships, but I just knew it wasn't a fit. And so I'm not going to settle until I meet somebody. No, it does make it difficult. I'm going to tell you, having my doctorate and just my personality, it does intimidate men. It does. Men think that they need to make more money. So when they find out I make more money than them, it causes them to be not as interested. So I know that other people see that, and that may scare them off from becoming a more powerful woman. And you see all these things about a masculine woman, and men don't want that. And so it's just really difficult because there's that balance there. But I'm not going to change who I am for anybody. And this is just who I am. So get ready to have it. But the thing is that's something I do when I've spoken to high schoolers and I'm trying to empower them, that you want to be able, what it is, you want to be able to support yourself but then know that there are resources if you do get in a situation. So I think that education is just so important. You know, looking back in time, there was a time when women were not allowed to read. Women were not allowed to get an education. Here, who knows about Albert Einstein's first wife? Anybody? Do you realize that once he got divorced from this first wife, all his discoveries pretty much had stopped? So Milvia Margaret Einstein collaborated with him, but at the time, if she would have put her name on these articles, these research, it was not going to be as represented. It was not going to be taken as seriously. A lot of people believe that she was the brain by a lot of these discoveries. So looking at that, I mean, just looking in general, did all of a sudden Black people become smart? Did all of a sudden that women become intelligent? No, these were things, but at the time we were just not accepted to be able to be that person that it came from us. And so I think having even more women in education. So I was a professor for 10 years. Having that representation is so key to ensure that they have a seat at the table. There's multiple studies that have shown Black women are the most educated in a majority of fields. If it requires a master's, they have to have a doctorate, right? And a white man may be able to get away with a bachelor's. And so they're then having to pay more money and make with their loans and then make less money. And so again, we have to have the education, unfortunately, still to be able to just be on a playing field with a white Caucasian man. We still have to be up here, and then women of color have to be up here. So without the education, unfortunately, sometimes we're not able to have that seat at the table until we start working together to make sure we do. I was at a meeting this week and I asked the hard conversations. They talked about a new woman who has a new discovery. And this male was on the board, and he said the board was giving her a very hard time and micromanaging her. She was a PhD, made a discovery for women in incontinence, about to get FDA approved, about to be worth a lot of money. And so I asked the question, if that was a male in that position, do you think that the same reaction or interaction would happen? And he came back as, well, it was a woman doing that. Well, I wanted to come back and say, well, sometimes women are the hardest on other women. So honestly, I still go to my first question. I feel that if he was a man, even the woman in that position on the board wouldn't have done that. Sometimes it even has been women themselves who have not allowed me to have that because they've had to work so much harder. They think that I need to work harder than them. So we have to stop that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, definitely. You guys are dropping so many gems. I'm just like over here taking notes, like, oh yeah, this is good, this is good. But let's talk about that for a little bit. Dr. Shanna brought up the point of how hard women are on other women. In you guys' opinion, how did we get to that point? How did we get from supporting each other to competing with each other? What happened? And I'll just open that up for anybody that feels comfortable answering that, because I think it's definitely something that we see. You walk in, you see a woman and she's all put together and, oh, she must think she's all that, instead of being like, girl, you look good, like, I like those shoes and all that. We've become this competitive being. And how did we get to that point? And just anybody can answer.
I think we've allowed society to do that. We compete for a small amount of spots within a space. And so we think that if I tear this person down or this woman down, it's going to give me a leg up in getting that position. And so I think that's a lot of it. I think when we become aware of who we are and understand that the opportunities for us are for us, and the opportunities that are for this person or for that person, we'll see that there isn't any competition. But I think we've allowed society to make us think, well, if she wins, then I can't win. And I think it's a mentality.
Okay, definitely. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I just want to agree, there's been a lot of publicity about the first women a full city council of women, and even like the backlash on that, like how is that fair, how is that being represented? But at the same time, that's happening every single day, where there is a board and it's full of all white men and nobody blinks an eye. And so just kind of like when we talked about in Black History Month, it's not a pie, right? It's not that if Blacks or people of color get part of the pie, we're to lose it. I think as women, we have to have that same mentality, and stop thinking I had to work so hard, so you have to work hard too. Be like, no, I'm gonna pave that way for you so it's a little bit easier. I mean, that's what the men do. That's what the good old boy club is, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna get my friends in here. And so again, I get like you're saying, like we need to support and talk each other up instead of who is she trying to impress? That's not me. With no makeup or lipstick and my mom gets mad. But how do we change that mentality that to to really make groundbreaking change, we are going to have to uplift other women and let them know, give that knowledge of things that we learned to make it a little bit easier for them.
Definitely, definitely. Renee, anything to add?
No, I think Robin hit it right on the head. I mean, it's society that influences us to think that we've got that resources are limited, so our education's limited, or your wages are limited, or everything it's the scarcity mindset. And with scarcity mindset, you become so competitive that you are unabashedly fighting for everything that you can get, and anybody that is vaguely like you becomes almost an enemy. And I think that scarcity mindset is what's done it, and it's a societal construct. It's a real problem as far as distracting us. This area in particular, the Panhandle Plains region, and something that I found with How Women Save the West is that nothing in this area is done individually. It can't be. Everything must be done in community wise. You cannot survive on your own out here. And when they started to, Native Americans knew it. They traveled in bands and family bands and clans. They were able to utilize everybody's talents. When pioneers started to settle this region, they had to have people that were good at what they were good at, and not everybody was the jack of all trades, because no one could survive out here alone. And somewhere along the line, we've forgotten that we each have our own talents and we each have our own strengths, and that we're not going to survive alone. We must survive by being in a network of other individuals who do things better than we do. We have to recognize that there's no reason to be in a competition, because I can't do the things that you do, and you can't do some of the things that I do. And if we can help each other by trading, or just being on the same team, we're going to get further, and we're going to do a lot better than just one of us being really good at something and being the victor. Society doesn't want a bunch of people to be just out there on their own. Society knows that we have to work together, and making it harder to do that makes society a little more dysfunctional. And I think the dysfunction is what sells things. And so that dysfunction and that competition keeps the people that are making money more money. And if we can ignore that just for a little while, we can be stronger, and we can be more community minded. And with that, we'll take away that power, and society can regain its ability to function as a unit, rather than as a bunch of individuals up against each other.
Definitely, definitely. I always say the table of success is huge and there's enough room for all of us to sit there and enjoy. And I think that you guys are so right. Society, we don't realize the impact that it has on even the most common thing, but because society says that we can't both be winners, somebody has to be a loser. But we have to change that mentality and understand that we can all be winners. And just like Renee said, you bring this to the table, I bring this to the table, and Shanna brings something, Robin brings something. Next thing you know, it's got this most beautiful thing that we can grow on and build on. And I think that's important because when we look at this younger generation of girls, my son is consistently showing me pictures or videos that are being shot of these girls at Tascosa who are fighting. I mean, fighting, fighting, fighting. And a lot of times they're fighting because of some guy who's probably standing on the sidelines with another girl, and then they're going to end up fighting her, you know? So then the kids are not doing what we say do, they're doing what they see us do. And so then that becomes even more important for us to come together and really reach down and reach those kids. And so that brings us to the next topic. We have two more topics. So the next one is mentoring. And how do you guys see the importance of mentoring young girls? What are some things that we can do? What are some tangible things that are being done? How can we grow in that arena? And let's see, Dr. Shanna, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's just so important. So on April 1st, I'm going to be Women in STEM or Girls in STEM. I'm going to be the program that night. And I think it's just so important to see what all the opportunities are out there and how far that they can go. I did a health fair one time at Eastridge Elementary School, and there was a little boy there, and he's from Ethiopia, and he's like, I'm going to be an MBA, but I want to be in the MBA, but I'm probably going to end up in Tyson. That's where all my family works. Well, I had a student that was from Ethiopia, and so I introduced them. And it actually, this little, second grader was like, I could be a doctor. I think just being able to see somebody that's achieved it, that's like you, that is a woman, and for you that have a family, that you can have both. I think it's just so important because there's so many things that are still put on girls that, you're going to have to be the cooker and the cleaner and take care of the kids. And so that you really can have both of both worlds if you really want it.
Definitely. Robin, what about you? What do you think about mentoring and what's being done and what can be done?
I think it's important. I think that's part of women's empowerment. It's supporting the women that are adults and in their prime and working their careers, but it's also about reaching back and helping those girls that are coming up behind you. I think mentorship is crucial in terms of not really what you say sometimes, but what you don't say, because they're watching you. They're watching you and they're studying you. So if you get into a difficult situation, they're watching to see how you handle that situation. And the hope is that they'll mirror their behavior the same way. But I think it's just sharing your resources, sharing your time, and really talking to them so they don't reinvent the wheel. Okay, this is what worked for me. Okay, this didn't work for me. Really having a conversation and listening with this generation that's coming up. I think that's a crucial part of mentorship. So nonverbal behavior, nonverbal communication. I'm listening. Talk to me actively. Tell me what you're going through. Why do you feel like you need to fight over this boy that is probably it's not going to be marriage? I'm just going to tell you. And so sometimes that mentorship is being honest with them. So I went to an event back in February at Fannin. It was 8 young ladies and they were 8th graders, and they decided all of the mentorship programs were geared towards the boys. So they got together and they got a petition circulated saying, we want some people to come in and some women to come in and mentor us. And so I went to that event and just supporting them. Part of mentorship is just supporting, being there, saying, good job. They put on this presentation. It was they had done their research and just being there to say, I support you. I see what you're doing. What was so interesting about that event is those girls, they have already started mentoring the sixth graders at Fannin, so they get it. And one of the questions that was asked of these 8 young women was, you started this program this year, but you're getting ready to go on to high school. And they said, we want to leave something for the girls behind us. That's mentorship. That's why it's so important. The second part of that is teaching at Amarillo College, being up there at the front of that classroom and having a woman of color, a student of color come up to you in awe, just, I can't believe you're a lawyer. You're doing that. That means, I can do it. And I tell them, if I can do it, you can do it. That's part of mentorship also. And I think it's crucial to our success as women as a whole.
Definitely, definitely. And Renee.
Yeah, no, I'm right there. Both of them made great points. Mentoring is about enthusiasm. My faculty mentor for my master's degree was incredible. She always took time out of her very busy schedule and always made sure that when I was asking her questions, she would come up with either the answers, or she would ask her own hard questions. Sometimes I would be like, oh, didn't want to hear that, so I didn't listen to it. And then I came back and I listened to it. But she was always enthusiastic, and she was always so willing to, like you said, share resources. Because if I've got something that you may benefit from, that's what a mentor is there to do, is to guide the way and to make things a little easier on the people behind them. And if each one of us make it a little easier on somebody from behind us, man, that by the time that it hits the end of the chain, they're going to know exactly what to do, and they're going to have a easier time of getting what they need done. And then how will that impact our world, that somebody can be successful easier, and then they get their own they get their own innovations, and they bring whatever it is that they bring to the table that can enrich our lives. So we get rewarded by helping and encouraging those other people, and just being enthusiastic about listening and encouraging other people.
Definitely, definitely. The last question that I have for you ladies is self-care. How do you provide self-care, and how is that, why is self-care important? Looking for tips here, pointers, anything that you guys may have, because I think all of us need help on taking care of ourselves. And so, Robin, we'll let you start.
I think it's very important. I don't do as much of it as I need to. I'll admit that. But I do think that it's important, mainly because we can't pour from an empty cup. So we need to make sure that we're okay before we try to give to others. So it's like being on an airplane. First thing they tell you, if something goes wrong, you put your mask on, then you put your child's mask on, or the person next to you. In terms of what I do for self-care, I work out, I do yoga, I go for walks. I can't wait for this rain to just stop because I'm missing out on my walk. So I'll go hang out at Medi Park and just walk and just listen to the birds, just to have complete silence. Yeah, and just being in that space where it's just quiet. I'm not doing anything. I'm just enjoying Robin. I'm not studying a case. I'm not showing a house. I'm just being Robin. I'm just being. So I'm working on that. Those are the things I do, and I think it's super important.
Definitely. Okay, thank you for that. Dr. Shanna?
Self-care, self-care, self-care. Yeah, it's just, I'm always have my mind going. And so I actually get my lashes done, and I like it because I just lay there for 90 minutes. And I just try to let my brain shut off, which is hard. But I think finding something that works for you. I also try to, practice mindfulness, deep breathing. So when then I do get in a stressful situation, I can breathe through it. I also suffer from depression and anxiety. So self-care is even more critical. So I don't let those diseases take over my life. And so I try to give a lot, but I understand I also have to take that time for myself. And there are times they say no, believe it or not. And so practicing the word no in certain situations, if you are not have a full cup, as Robin said, is so critical. You have to make sure that you're full first. If you're not going to be doing anybody any good. You're more likely to lash out and actually cause more problems. And so knowing your limitations is also so critical, to know, okay, I'm going to have to back off and I need to take some time for myself, especially for y'all that are working moms. Um, in letting your partner know about that or family to come in so you can have that time to really be able to recharge.
Definitely, definitely. And Renee.
Oh, self-care is extremely important to everyone, male or female. But it's something that you've got to remember that it's more like maintenance. It's more like car maintenance and house maintenance. You can't just take and zap all of your energy and then all of a sudden you refill your cup and then you're ready to go again for another marathon. It doesn't work that way. The best thing to do is finding a maintenance self-care routine. So doing something regularly, like taking walks or going to the gym. I go to get your lashes done. I go to Amarillo Art Institute on Saturdays and work in clay. I don't know what I'm doing. I make random things. I have no clue what's going on, but they let me play there, and until they kick me out, I'll go in every Saturday and play in the clay. I don't, that's just part of something that's a creative outlet for me. I suffer from depression and anxiety as well. So I have to get enough sleep. If I don't get enough sleep, I am relatively worthless the next day. And so when somebody says, "Hey, do you want to go and hang out?" I say, "Yes, that's cool, but I need to be in bed by 10 o'clock at the latest. And otherwise, I turn into a pumpkin." That's part of self-care. That is the maintenance part, because you maintain your well-being, you maintain your overall health, by remembering that you're not a machine built to go forever. You're not a 1940s fridge that will last for 75 years without ever needing maintenance, because whatever they were doing, we are the new types that need maintenance more frequently. And being cognizant of doing things consistently and not waiting until you're burnt out is the best way that you can take care of yourself, and maintaining self-care regularly, and not seeing it as a treat, seeing it as a necessity. Self-care is more than just getting your nails done once a month. And it is, how do you sleep, how do you eat, how do you move your body? All of those things are self-care, and all of it is maintenance for this really cool machine that you are operating on a daily basis. So my soapbox is self-care consistently. It means, self-maintenance.
Definitely. I want to thank you ladies for all of those types of things, because just as most women, self-care is a foreign word to me, and I'm consistently a pumpkin and consistently pouring from an empty cup. And I want to get my lashes done, but I never have time, because even though I say no, the next moment I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe I should go ahead and say yes. So the tips that you guys have provided today have been amazing. The knowledge that you have imparted with us has been just so valuable. And I hope that this Zoom, I hope that it reaches the masses, and I hope that it encourages women, men, kids, whoever watches it, to know that A, that they're not alone, and B, that if we band together, we are stronger together. And so on behalf of the Amarillo Branch NAACP, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out to be here with us today. Don't let it be the last time. If you want to be a member, definitely go to our Facebook page and be a member. We have a wonderful women's event coming up next Saturday, and it's about women in business. And so we have a lot of vendors who are going to be out there with all kinds of different things. We're going to have snacks and treats. You get in for $5. We're trying to work it where maybe we can have a cocktail or something, because we understand as women, we need to unwind. And so what better way to unwind than with food and drinks and successful women talking to us about their products. So it will be from 2 to 5 next Saturday at the Black Historical Cultural Center. Again, it'll be $5 to get in, but it will be the best $5 that you can spend. And Renee, we promise to have you in bed by 10, okay? We got you.
Hey, I've got a table there, so
Okay.
I'm participating, and you gotta get me out early so I can go to
Yes,
bed.
that's right. And so if you guys have anybody else who would like to have a table, they can contact Jerry Glover. The information is on the flyer. Go to our webpage and share the flyer for us. The more women we have there, the bigger the celebration. And we really want women to know that they're not by themselves, that they have all of us supporting. So we hope to see you guys there. Again, thank you, and have a great weekend. I hope the rain stops so y'all can go do your walking thing. Those of you that like the rain, I hope it continues for a little bit so you can enjoy all the good things. You women are queens and amazing, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Guys.
Bye.